Thank you. If we can, Peter, ask you, if you don't mind, going to, let's have a look at the perek. This is the second perek of Shabbos. Now, you may well ask, what has this got to do with, I won't say Rosh Hashanah now, I will say Hanukkah. What's it got to do with Hanukkah? Have a look, Peter, at the beginning of the second perek of Shabbos, please. So let's have a look. Oh, wow, that's quick. But now, no, I want to go to, oh, you can do it that way? Yeah? I think you may need, Peter, to get people on muted. But can you come right back to 20B? So it's only a bit first scrolling back. You just can scroll it back if you like. But I was going to go to the Mishnayos, but let's have a look. If he's got an introduction on 20B, is where we're getting there. And you find the Mishnah on 20B. Here we are, 20A, gone too far. Keep going. Now it should say Bamer Madlikin. You've gone too far. All right, okay, we lost it. No. It hasn't gone in. Okay, go to text. Go to Mishnah. Go to, scroll down and go to Shabbos. Shabbat. Go to Perek 2. Let's see if it's a nice introduction for us. Is there? Oh, yeah, okay. Let's just scroll down a bit. Yeah, that's all we need. That introduction. We'll scroll down. Yeah, a bit of it. The Mishnah, here we are. The Mishnah cites, this is, let's say, if you've got a Gemara, this is not on Daf Chof Omid base, but the Mishnah cites a list of fuels and wicks that one may not use in kindling the Shabbos lights, either because their light might induce one to perform repetitive labor. In other words, they may go out, or their use might induce one to perform. They're not in keeping with the different due to Shabbos. In other words, the type of quality that you need. The Mishnah begins by listing materials one may not use as wicks. You want the wicks not to, as we've said here, I suppose you'd say, easily be distinguished. Yeah? Extinguished, I should say, rather than distinguished. Sorry about that. You don't want them easily to become extinguished. And therefore, there's a list of that in the beginning of the Perek of Shabbos. Now, Peter, we can go back to seeing people. Right, good to see others joining us. Good. A wave there from a few people. Right, now we are at Chof Aleph. Those people who've got a Gemara, otherwise you've got the attachment, and we are right at the base of Chof Aleph Omid Aleph. 3 lines up. Okay, so thank you, Peter, and thank you, indeed, Peter, for last week. It was a great, it was a wonderful seeing, and for all the organisation and everything else. Thank you very much, and we've got that on record now. So there you are. We've seen the introduction. The introduction talks about the wicks. Of course, people may be familiar with that. The Mishnayos that Shul say on Friday night, Bamer Madlikin, Uvomor Ein Madlikin, with which wicks and which oils can you use? Because, as I say, we don't want it to extinguish very easily. Does the same rule apply to Hanukkah? And we'll get some important principles coming out of this. So 3 lines up from the bottom, the last lines of the Gemara, Chof Aleph Omid Aleph. Right. Amen. Have you got it? Omar Rav Huna. 3 lines up. Omar Rav Huna. Pesilois Ushmonim. Those wicks and those oils, she'omru chachomim ein madlikin bohem b'Shabbos, that we mentioned, we won't go through that, and that's a Shabbos halacha. This is after all Maseches Shabbos. Says Good to see you, Malcolm. We're on 2 lines up from the base of Chof Aleph Amud Aleph. Those same wicks and oil, ein madlikin bohem b'Chanukah. You cannot use them for Chanukah as well. Ein madlikin. Bein b'Shabbos, bein b'Chol. Whether indeed, now we're talking here when it says b'Shabbos, it means Friday night. So on Friday night, of course, you'd have the Shabbos candles, plus also the candles. I call them candles. It could be Bein b'Shabbos, bein b'Chol, whether it's during the week of Chanukah, whether it's Friday night, you cannot use those wicks. And why not? You'll see a very interesting rules coming through here. Omar Rava, Ma Tam de Rav Huna. What is the reason of Rav Huna? Do you have to be so strict as you are on Shabbos for Chanukah? Maybe you don't. Ma Tam de Rav Huna Kusova, he holds Kovsa Zokuk. No. What does that mean? First of all, Kovsa, if it goes out, yeah, Chabot, to put out, if it goes out, Zokuk Lo, it's demanded of you, you really need to relight the candle or whatever you're lighting. It could be oil, it could be candles. So what? We'll see in a minute. Umuta lishtamesh la'ira. It's permitted to use the light of Hanukkah candles. This is the first view, so let's not just rush into halachas yet. The first view of Rav Huna is, if it goes out, you have to relight it, right? So you can see the point here. What is the mitzvah? The mitzvah, the lighting, or is the mitzvah the fact that it should be a light? Rav Huna's learning, the mitzvah is it should stay a light. It's not just like, although we say lahadlik ner el Chanukah, it's not just the lighting. We've got to be very careful that it doesn't go out, because if it does go out, zokuk lo, it's demanded of you that you need to relight. So what? Let's have a look at Rashi, please. 5 lines up. Kovso ner Chanukah. If the light goes out, somebody may pick up the grammar there. Is ner masculine or feminine? Sam, good one for you. Would you say ner tov, ner tova, or ner yafeh, ner yafa?
Masculine.
You are very good. Very good. You'd expect it to be masculine, but you can see from the Gemara that it is one of those words that can be either. That's why it says kovso. Normally, you're quite right. That's picked up by the Yavitz, who says that although you'd expect ner perhaps to be, well, as we say, you'd say ner yafeh, ner gadol. Like you say nes gadol, you'd say ner gadol, a large light. But you can see it's feminine as well, because it says kovso, which is the feminine, rather than kovso. If it goes out, and that's what Rashi says here, what's going out, says Rashi, the ner of Chanukah. We're not talking about Shabbos now. We've moved to Chanukah. If the light goes out, next Rashi, zokuk lo. It's like incumbent upon you. You must zokuk lo, you must. What must you do, says Rashi? Letakno, to remedy the situation or remedy it, and you'd have to rekindle. So what? Hilkoch, therefore, tzorich lechatchila lasos yofer. Make sure it's good quality candles, good quality wicks. Why? Dilma poshabaloi masakino. Maybe the person is busy with something else, won't get round to it, negligence, and won't relight. So because there is this mitzvah of hadlokas ner Chanukah, which means the light should stay light. If it goes off, if it's extinguished, you'll have to relight it. The person may not get round to rekindling. Therefore, much better, let's start with good quality oil and wicks, as mentioned in the Mishnah regarding Shabbos, Bameh Madlikin Uvamor Ein Madlikin. The Mishnah goes through various materials that can and cannot be used, what type of oil, what type of wicks, the same thing for Hanukkah. Okay, number one, that's all very well. You have to rekindle. On top of that, mutar lishtamesh la'ora. You can use the Hanukkah lights for reading, whatever you'd like to use them for. You can utilize lihishtamesh. You can utilize the lights. Says Rashi, hilkoch b'Shabbos osa. Therefore, again, on Shabbos, make sure the lights are good quality. As much as possible, they shouldn't just be extinguished. Shemo yater letzorech tashmish. In other words, if you're using in this word lihishtamesh, maybe you'll be using it, you're reading a good sefer or a good book at the lights on Hanukkah, and you find there you're really stuck into this imagined book or sefer. Maybe you're learning Beis Halevi on Hanukkah, and the lights extinguishing, and you may forgetting that Shabbos, rekindle the light for the use of the candle. So you're with me. So therefore, we do as much as we can, and the halacha therefore means utilize good quality lights, less likely to be extinguished, less likely to go out, because you may be using those lights on a Friday night after you've lit them on Friday. As your mutar lishtamesh la'ora on Friday night, you might forget yourself, and if it's be slowly extinguishing, you might turn around and just, forgetting yourself, and ensure that the light is not extinguished. Are you with me? So then we've got two reasons. The first reason, which was Kovsa Zokukla. Thank you, Malcolm. I'll come to you in 1 second. The reason of Kovsa Zokukla, even if the rule is Kovsa Zokukla, for Friday night it won't matter because you can't rekindle anyway. So that's not relevant for Shabbos, but what is relevant for Shabbos is the fact that mutar lihishtamesh la'ora, and therefore even on Friday night, utilize good quality wicks and oil, less likely to be extinguished, and therefore you're less likely to accidentally rekindle the lights. We can look at the wicks to ensure that they will not be extinguished. Are you with me? That is the view of Rav Huna, and Malcolm's got a question.
Yeah, sorry, I might have missed something. Hello. But isn't it true that the Hanukkah lights are only, you actually say we are only going to look at them to remember the miracles, the wonders, and the things, and is actually explicit that you're not using it for anything else. You're using it only to
very good.
symbolize.
I did mention I did mention at the beginning that please don't hang up when we've just started Rav Huna, because this is just the beginning.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
So it's not that's why I mentioned that point, that they're going to be in fact 3 views here, so we'll have to keep the caffeine going. There are 3 views here, and the first one is Rav Huna. So Rav Huna is of the opinion, remember, mutar lishtamesh la'ora. So it will be very interesting to see if this is the halacha. In fact, you've already read the last page of the book, Malcolm, and as we know, ein lonu reshus lishtamesh b'hem. We always sing with great gusto, ein lonu reshus lishtamesh b'hem, which means you can't use them. But hold on a minute, because we haven't got to the last page of the Sefer yet. That is the view of Rav Huna. Now Rav Chisda. What about Rav Chisda? Rav Chisda says, Madlikin b'hem b'chol avlo b'Shabbos. You on Madlikin, those ones that we said should not be used, those candles, those the wicks, the oil that you can't use on Shabbos every Friday for Shabbos. You can use them during the week. Thursday night, the first night of Hanukkah, or Wednesday night, no, Thursday night, isn't it? I'm not sure myself now. Whenever the first night of Hanukkah is, might be Wednesday night, during the week, you can use poorer quality. Now, of course, it's always preferable to have al-hida mitzvah to try and get the best quality, but it's not crucial for the mitzvah. That's what we're saying. But not on Shabbos. Why not on Shabbos? Kesova, he is of the opinion. So we've now got in between here, Rav Chisda, madlikin during the week, but not on Shabbos with poorer quality oils and wicks. Kesova, kovso, ein zokuk lo. If it goes out, you've done your best, you've lit the candle. If it's extinguished, there's no compulsion, ein zokuk lo, there's no compulsion to rekindle. You lit them at the time it was meant to last. It's true. If suddenly a gust of wind extinguished them, you do not have to relight. Therefore, if you remember previously, the concern was the person will not get round to rekindling, which he must do. That's what we're concerned about during the week. According to Rav Chisda, that is not a concern, because if it actually is extinguished, there's no problem. There's no mitzvah to rekindle. It might be a nice thing to do. Particularly, you've got the family around. You may want the lights. But as long as it could have lasted, if they're extinguished, there's no mitzvah to rekindle, according to Rav Chisda. Therefore, during the week, there's no concern that the person may, with pshia, negligence, not rekindle, because there's no rekindling that needs to be done. Therefore, you can, strictly speaking, use poorer quality oil. As I say, that's obviously would be preferable not, but you don't have to have best quality oil, as long as it could last the required time, and we have to see what that required time is, comes up in the Gemara quite soon. Therefore, again, Rav Chisda says, poorer quality wicks and oil, not allowed on Shabbos, but they are allowed on Hanukkah during the week, but not on Friday. Why not? Says the Gemara, top line of the Gemara, Chof Aleph Amud Beis, umuta ein zokuk lo, umuta lishtamish la'ira. You are, however, allowed to use the candles. I know, not like Malcolm suggesting, but Rav Chisda is also of the view, muta lishtamish la'ira. What does that mean if it's muta lishtamish la'ira? If you can use the candles, a person might forget themselves on Friday night and rekindle because he's in the middle of utilizing them, right? Therefore, we insist, says Rav Chisda, that you do want good quality oil, wicks, on Friday night in particular, in fact, only on Friday night, according to Rav Chisda, because you may be using those lights, looking at something, whatever, during a meal, whatever, and you'll forget yourself, they're slowly extinguishing, and you'll rekindle, as I say, accidentally. That may happen. Therefore, do the best you can, which means have good quality like you have on Friday night, good quality lights, good quality wicks, and good quality oil. Are we okay? So we've got two views now.
About this Ein Zokuk Lo, I don't understand. Is Zokuk Lo, is that halacha, or is it just advice? The halacha.
Well, that's the point. You're right. It is a halacha, but there's a machlokas whether or not you need Zokuk Lo or not. Do you say hadloka oisa mitzvah? Or do you say, no, it's not the hadloka, it's got to actually be a light? What is the mitzvah? You see, this is crucial. What is the mitzvah of light? If it's Pisumi Nisa, you could say Pesumim is when you actually light. Or do you say, no, the mitzvah is that it's actually got to be a light, so you've got to do as much as we can to ensure that happens and it doesn't get extinguished. That exactly is the machlokas here. Do you say kovsa?
That's relevant to Hanukkah rather than Shabbos then. So Shabbos there's not
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously Shabbos, there's no the point that Rashi made here, if you say kovsu zokuklo and the person may not, that's not relevant on a Friday night because he can't rekindle anyway. So kovsu zokuklo means if it goes out on a Hanukkah light, you have to rekindle because it's got to be a light. The mitzvah is it's got to be a light the required time. Let's say it's half an hour. It's got to be a light for half an hour. If you say kofsa einel zokoglo, means there should have been enough oil, the candle should be long enough, it should have been possible to last the full time. But if it goes out, doesn't matter. You lit hadloka oisa mitzvah when you were madlik, you did the job. Sadly, if it was extinguished afterwards, that doesn't matter. You've done the mitzvah. Therefore, there's no concern that you might, with negligence, not rekindle, because if you don't relight because of negligence, doesn't matter. You don't have to relight. Yeah, interesting argument here. Therefore, you're quite right. That's the machlokas between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, whether kovsa zokukla or not. But they both agree that you can use the candles, not like Malcolm's suggestion. You can use the candles of Hanukkah, which means, therefore, on Friday night, we need to be aware. If you can use the candles, you might forget and reignite, forgetting that it's Shabbos. And therefore, get good quality. At least you've minimized that risk. With me? Okay. So far, that's two views. However, there's a third view. Omar Rab Zera, Omar Rab Masna. Rab Zera in the name of Rab Masna. But Omri, like others say, Omar Rab Zera, Omar Rab. But before we do, actually, let's have a look at the Rashis. So we'll just clarify what we've just said. Rav Chisda says, Ein zokukla, if you remember. Hilka b'chol shori. Therefore, you can use slightly inferior oil, not ideal, true, may not be a hidden mitzvah, but you can use it because if it goes out, we're not concerned about rekindling because you don't have to rekindle. Okay. However, also, that's all. Ein zokukla. So hold on. Let's not look at the next Rashi yet because we haven't seen the Gemara. So Rab Zera either said this in the name of Rab Masna, second line of the Gemara, but Omri lo Omar Rab Zera Omar Rav. Some people say this was in the name of Rav. This seems to be the general rule, as we'll see following through. This really is Rav, of course, first, I should say, really Premier Division, Lahabdil, of Amoraim, Rav and Shmuel, right up there. Earlier even than Rav and Rav Chisda, than Rav Chisda and Rav Huna. And so here's a third view. And Malcolm, you'll be pleased to hear. Persilos ushmonim she'omru chachomim ein madlikin bohem b'Shabbos. The full quote here. Those candles, those oils, those wicks that you can't use on Shabbos, madlikin bohen b'Chanika, bein b'chol, bein b'Shabbos. You can use that inferior quality. Not again stressing that's not ideal, but you can on Hanukkah, whether it's a Thursday night or a Friday night. Right? Can we work out what that reason is why he would allow both on a weekday and on the Shabbos? Omer Rabbi Yirmiyah. This is Rabbi Yirmiyah. Ma'atama. What's the reason he allows it? Of Rav. because this is Rabbi Yirmiyah suggesting what the reason is. It must be, he holds, kovsa ein zokukla. Yeah, let's think about this. On a Thursday, if it's extinguished, you don't have to rekindle. Therefore, we're not concerned about negligence not relighting because you don't need to relight. Therefore, on a Thursday, on a weekday, you don't have to have best quality oil and wicks. What about Friday night? Also, he holds osor lehishtamesh la'oirav. It's forbidden to use those Hanukkah lights for any, if you say usage, whether you're using it to read something, whether you're using it to select something, whatever. You cannot use that light. And of course, that's of course how we know we have the shamas. We utilize the shamas not only for lighting the candles, but also there is a candle there. So if you do actually want to use, you'll be using the light of the shamas. Yeah. So that's his view. Again, osa lishtamesh la'oira. Please have a look at the top Rashi. Osa lishtamesh la'oira. Why not? It should be noticeable and recognizable. Shehu ner mitzvah. It's not your normal candles. A person may have some candles in the house. Again, he wants light, as we all want light at night. That's not the reason why you're lighting the Hanukkah lights. The Hanukkah lights are there for the mitzvah of Hanukkah, and therefore to ensure it's recognizable. Sheyehei ner mitzvah. You cannot utilize those lights. In which case, on Friday night, leka which means we're not concerned you might want to incline, incline the wick where on Friday night, if it's going out, to incline the wick a bit more into the oil, which you can't do, of course, on Shabbos. So therefore, as that's not a concern, because you're not going to be using those lights, they're just there for Hanukkah. Therefore, on Shabbos, you would be allowed to use those lights. Okay, so the triple machlokas, Rav Huna, what did he say? Rav Huna said, if you like, a cross not allowed on Hanukkah during the week or Shabbos. Rav Chisda says during the week you can, but again not on Shabbos, because mutar lishtamish la'ora. And then we have the third view, Rav. Most people say this is the view of Rav, that it's permitted both during the week and on Friday night, because kovsa ein zokukla. It's not a demand on you to ensure that you rekindle, as long as there was sufficient oil, as long as they weren't that bad, the quality wasn't that bad that there's no way they were going to last the time anyway. But it can be inferior. Now, it's important that the reasons given were Omer Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah is explaining these words of Rav. Now, in particular, we've seen one kula of Rav, which wasn't there with Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Yes, he's lenient about both, but where Rav differs with both Rav Huna and Rav Chisda is on Friday night. Both Rav Huna
Norman has frozen. Apologies, not to do with this end. Oh, you're back.
I'm okay. I've got my three.
You've come back, Norman. You did freeze for a second there.
Oh, I've got my 3 bars here.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll keep an eye on that.
You were talking about.
Yeah, we were going back to Rav, who what did Rav say? Ein Madlikim ben Shabbos, Madlikim ben Mechanika during the week and on Shabbos too. So he is lenient on both accounts. And this was the view of Rabbi. This was said and then explained by Rabbi Yirmiyah. Okay, continue the Gemara. Just a couple of lines to finish this piece off. Amruha Rabbonon Kameda Amaya. They said this statement. This is a fascinating piece. They said this statement about Rav in front of Abaya in the name of Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah was Rabbi Yirmiyah, as we've seen before, explained that it's mutter both on Shabbos and on the weekday to use inferior quality. And they said this with Rabbi Yirmiyah's explanation to it. Below Kibla. Abaya says, I can't accept this. It's not something I'm used to. I've never heard of this before. I can't accept it. However, Ki Osa Rovin, or not, you don't read that Robin, as you might like to. No, Ki Osa Rovin. Rovin used to travel from Eretz Yisrael to Bovel, backwards and forwards. So he came, on one of the occasions, he came back from Eretz Yisrael, and he said, Amruho Rabbonon Kamei de Abaya. Wow, when Robin came, he said that, they said this statement, Amruho Rabbonon Kamei de Abaya, Mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Whoa, the great sage Rabbi Yochanan, again, right up there from Eretz Yisrael, more senior still. So he was explaining Pshat in Rav as well, this way, the way we've just heard, the Kibla. Then he accepted it. Look at the second line of Rashi. Below Kibla. When it was said over this statement in the name of Rabbi Yirmiyah, who was explaining it, and Abaya said, no. Shelo choshvu lismoich al devorav. When they said this over to the Rabbonon, interesting how it says that they weren't prepared to accept the statement when it was said in the name of Rabbi Yirmiyah. He said that contradicts what I've heard, and therefore I can't accept that. It's something I've never practiced earlier. So Rabbi Yirmiyah, with due respect, I can't, if it's just in the name of Rabbi Yirmiyah, I can't take that. However, when it came back in the name of Rabbi Yochanan agreeing to this statement of Rav, then it was accepted. The Kibla, he accepted it. When the rabbi said this in front of Abaya in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, and this is the statement of Rovin, Kibla, he accepted it. Why? Because the great Rabbi Yochanan was agreeing to this interpretation too, and therefore we have now Rabbi Yochanan, and Abaya himself therefore accepted this. Omar, he said, he obviously didn't know this until this statement came forward, and it was later on in his life. Omar Izakai, had I only merited it, Gamirte lishmaitza meikora. I wish I would have heard about this earlier. Have a look at Rashi, third line down. Izakoi, ilu hoyisa zoichel lomda. Had I actually learnt this earlier, hoyisi gorso kushashamato rishon, I would have actually included this in my learning, which I was revising constantly. It therefore would have remained and stuck in my mind. However, I didn't. I'm only hearing this now. Says the Gemara, Boho Gomra. But he did learn it in the end. So now let him include it in the statements that he's learnt. It seems like Abai was saying, I would have included this in the statements when I'm revising over all the halachas, when I'm revising over the Gemara, I would have included it earlier. So the Gemara is saying, well, you can include it though from now, can't you? Says the Gemara. And don't forget, according to Rav, we said there are two leniencies there. So it didn't matter much. He was being machmir until that time, but he was more concerned, at least he should quote officially the statements in the name, as we said, of Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, and he would have added it to his general learning. This is what he was concerned about. Says Gemara, well, you can add it now. What's wrong with that? Very important point for all us youngsters. Says Gemara, nafka mina legirsa diankusa. What does that mean? A yankusa? Yankusa means a young person. Learning something earlier. Look at this, fourth line down of the Gemara, of Rashi. Girsa diankusa. Miskayim yosa mishel zekeno zikno. Which means, if you learn, as we all know, things that you learned as a child, go through the tables or whatever, anything you learn as a child and a younger person, more likely to stick in the mind. And what he's saying here, with all the amount that he's remembering, much of it coming from his youth, he wishes he would have known that statement earlier. He could have included it in his repertoire of all his knowledge of going across Shas, etc. But sadly, he's only now heard it. So although, yes, from now on, he will be including it in his learning, but he's concerned that even the great sage Abaye may forget this as time goes on because it's not there from a younger age. Very powerful comment, actually.
There's a similar thing, Norman, in Perak, isn't there, about learning Yayin?
Yes, absolutely. And we talk about, you remember, on paper or a paper which is like, if you talk about like paper which is no blemishes on the paper, if you like. Once you've got like blotting paper, yeah?
Blotting paper, yeah.
The old blotting paper, once you've got blotting paper, which is, you know, there's no ink marks on it, you'll remember, you'll see all the ink marks as they slowly, if it's full of ink marks and it's a full blotting paper, very hard to notice an extra bit of ink on it. In fact, hard to include anything further on that, and certainly the blotting paper won't have the same effect any longer. So for all us young people here, the sooner we get onto it, rather than, please say another. I suppose the main message for us is don't leave it until you're over 90 to start remembering things. Oh, well done, thank you, Peter.
Blotting paper.
Blotting paper, thank you. So yeah, don't leave out of the learning till one's over 90. And really, let's get stuck in a little bit earlier than that. It's a powerful message. But back to the main halacha here that we're looking at, which is that triple machlokas. So particularly, we need to know what actually is the halacha there. So let's just have a look a moment. When it comes to kovsa zokuklo, which means if it goes out, do you have to rekindle? So we had the first view, kovsa zokukla. Then we had the view, kovsa ein zokukla. And then we had the third view, kovsa ein zokukla. So that's 2-1. We'll have to see if we're going to follow that. 2-1 for kovsa ein zokukla, which means that if it goes out, you don't have to rekindle. Preferred if you do, but you don't have to. That's 2-1 for kovsa zokukla. Let's see if we're going to follow that 2-1 rule. What about osa lishtamish la'ira? Is it mutter lishtamish la'ira or not? Now, what's the score there? Rav Huna and Rav Chisda both said mutter lishtamish la'ira. It's Rav who said, Osa lishtamish la'oira. There, if you're following the principle of 2-1, there it would sound like it's mutter lishtamish, or that's the way we should pasken. With me? Let's have a look at the last part of the Tosfos on Chof Aleph Amud Beis, where it says, let's follow this from Bein B'Shabbos L'Avim Motzelamim Alikan Stam. At the beginning of the line is Lihishtamesh La'oira. Got the line Lihishtamesh La'oira 1, 2, 3. About 11 lines down in Tosfos, yeah, on the Chof Aleph Amud Beis. Have you got that? Fine. V'chein hilchasa. What is the halacha? Dener Chanukah osa lishtamish la'oira. Wow, it is forbidden. Why? Because although we said we thought it was 2-1, it's in fact not 2-1. It's 2-all. Why? Because not only Rav said this, Rabbi Yochanan was explaining it as well, this view of Rav. It sounds like Rabbi Yochanan therefore also agreed to the principle of Rav. And Abaya Nami Kibla, as we've seen, Abaya added it to his repertoire. He kept this halacha now, although there's Rav Hun and Rav Chisda. And the Gemara then, Tosfos goes on to say, Rabbi Yosef Nami Mashma Lakam on the Shvir. We haven't seen that. But Rabbi Yosef, another Amora holds like it. So in fact, we end with something like 4-2 against the view. So we're saying 4 views holding Osa lishtamish la'oira. Yeah? So therefore, Osa lishtamish la'oira. We'll have a look at that loch in a moment. What about the kovsa? If it goes out, do you have to rekindle? Says Tosfos, the kovsa ein zokukla. Kovsa ein zokukla, the kulu sphira lehu hachi. The others hold this. Remember, we saw this 2-1. There are later Gemaras as well about this topic. Rav Huna yochidhu. Rav Huna is a singleton on his own. Rav Huna was the view who said, if you remember, was it right? So again, Kovsa ein zokul klop, because on the previous page it was only Rav Huna in that bottom line who says Kovsa zokul klop. With me? So therefore, just in the number game, we are following. Tosfos is telling us, the other views too. Tosfos is telling us in this machlokas on kovsa, we're holding kovsa ein zokul klop. We are also holding osa lishtamish la'oira. Therefore, it seems in total we're holding like that last view of Rav, and therefore that's the view of Tosfos. Malcolm.
Sorry to interrupt, but I've got a question.
Go for it.
I understand the logic or the internal logic of the argument, but it doesn't seem like anyone's basing it on anything. There's no there's no reasoning. It's that I can't. Where is it? Where is the reason for being able to use it or not to be able to use it? And what they're just stating it.
Yeah, they are. They are stating. You're quite right. So, what we're saying here from this, followed from tradition, is the mitzvah of lighting, and as we've seen here, why osali shtamish la'oira? Because it's got to be recognizable that it's l'shem mitzvah, and the way you do that is by not using it. Or do you say no? Even that it's like almost logic here. Do you say that no? If you've lit the candles, You can still use them, but everybody knows it. I'm using a menorah. I don't normally use a menorah except for this 1 week of Hanukkah. That's all you need. I've got my special beautiful menorah, my silver, or even if it's not silver, I've got my menorah for Hanukkah. That itself is sufficient to show that I'm doing it for the mitzvah, and therefore you can use the lights. Gesundheit, when you're playing your dreidel or whatever you're doing with your near your Hanukkah lights or having your latkes, by all means select your latkes using the count because it's recognizable. Yeah. Whereas according to this view that says you've got to go a step further. That is not enough. We want, it's so clear, it should be recognizable that it's only that I'm lighting this. It's got nothing to do with adding additional lights. Here's somebody's birthday or something. This is especially for Hanukkah. And it's especially for Hanukkah. So you're right. In the end of the day, it's using logic to a certain extent, but those are the two views. Whereas on the Kovsa Zokuk law, there again, it's tradition. What is the main mitzvah? Is the main mitzvah when you light it? And that's the same Pirsumei Nisa, although you could say the Pirsumei Nisa is it should remain a light. We're saying no. The fact that you're going to light it, that is publicizing the miracle. Hopefully it shouldn't go out, but if it does, it doesn't have to rekindle. Where otherwise you'd say, no, it's got to be a light for the full term. If it's not, then it's got to be relit. Yeah. So out of these, the conclusion is, as we've said, Kovsa ein Zokukla. So if I can call on you, Peter, let's go this time to Shulchan Aruch.
Normally it's a very unusual mitzvah because on one hand it's to light the menorah, but part of the mitzvah halachically is not to use it for other purposes.
Yes, to show.
So it's a double mitzvah in a sense. I mean, you complete the mitzvah simply by lighting it.
Yes.
But it's a chiddush mitzvah or whatever by not using it for some other purpose. But you've still done the mitzvah even if you do use it for another purpose, I assume.
Yes, that's true. That's true. If you do use it for another purpose, it still remains, but you're not allowed to use it for another purpose. That's the point. To show it's special for Hanukkah, it's left there and not used for anything else. I'm not going to use it to look for anything else or read by the side of the light. It's got to be left just on its own. That's part of the mitzvah.
But is but that's the justification for that is just numbers. It's not an argument.
No, oh, which way? No, you're quite right. No, it often goes like that. What we've seen in the Gemara, and this is development of the Gemara, in the Gemara we've seen various views coming out. That's true. If your Rov was Rav Huna, you might go one way. If your Rov was Rav Chisda, another way. What we're now looking, and that's what Tosfos later on, medieval, much later on, looking at what are we meant to do? We've got an argument here. What actually is the bottom line on this? So we've got to take a view. Sadly, you can't say anybody's like following. I'm still a Talmud of Rav Huna. That doesn't exist anymore. So we've got to have a decision. So a decision. What this Gemara is saying is, what do most people go? What are they holding? And we often do use that. There are other rules when you find, like, for example, if it was going to be an argument between Rava and Abaya, generally we'd follow Rava. There are rules when you have certain people arguing about things in the Gemara, how to paskin. In this instance, the Tosfos is explaining to us that in many ways we're looking at numbers. Numbers of people mentioned in the Gemara, and based on that, that's because they're almost like equal rank. How you're meant to decide which one to follow. So that's what we're saying here. In particular, we've got some very big names there. We've got Rav himself, who actually is earlier than Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. We've got Rav Yochanan. So therefore, that would be the conclusion. So back now to you, Peter. Let's have a look at halacha here.
Sorry, can I just? I have a bit of a what's the word? Rebellious character. Sorry about this. But
that's good.
I just think they said Huna had a viewpoint, and they didn't dismantle the viewpoint. They just sort of stated something.
Yeah, he was
Against it.
coming
So
from a school who,
Yeah.
obviously, Rav Huna, it sounds like it was from his earlier teachers. He was coming from a school. They're not challenging. They're saying, one is saying, let's go to the point about whether you can use the candles. One would say, as we said before, that no, using the candles is still there for Hanukkah. It's the Hanukkah lights. Where the other view would say that's not good enough. What you need is no utilization of the candles to show clearly. So you can see the difference there, whether you should or shouldn't. So, nobody's dismantling the other view.
Okay.
There are two views there. So nowadays we've got to come to a conclusion. Which one should we take? And it's very interesting. We're not actually. You could have argued and said, as there is an argument about it, let's be strict. The Gemara's not saying that. The Gemara not saying because there's an argument we're going to take the stricter view. No, not at all. In fact, we end up having the most lenient of the views. So it's quite powerful. So the argument of Tosfos is saying it's very important to look at these different views. Yeah. Often, as I say, you could have said, well, let's take the strict view.
The strict view would be that you have to relight it. That would be the strict view.
Yes. Yes.
But,
the strict view would be that you couldn't use the candle, these wicks.
Yes.
You couldn't use them. You're right. I suppose as far as utilizing them for other purposes, you've got a strict, something strict and something lenient. The strict point would be you're not allowed to use the candles. The lenient part of that is, but you therefore could use wicks which are inferior quality, because you're not worried about turning on, let's say on Shabbos, you're not worried that you're going to rekindle them because you're not using it anyway. So there you've got a leniency and something being strict, a halacha. Let's have a quick look at the halacha here. And we're going now to Shulchan Aruch. And we'll go first of all to chapter 600. Let's go to Orach Chaim, quite right. 673, please. There we are. Look at this. Halacha shmonim upsilos, which means the oils and the wicks, which are kosher for Hanukkah. Look at that first halacha. Kol hashmonim v'apsilos ksherim l'nei Hanukkah. Even though ein hashmonim nimshochim achapsila, maybe they're not going to be drawn so well. I mean, obviously, you're not going to assume that it's going to go out because then you haven't done the mitzvah. But it's not top quality. So clearly, as we've seen before, come down. Interesting. It's worth having a look at the Hagor there, second line. Hagor says, Moshe Islis, umiu. Although you can use one line up from there, umiu shemen zayis mitzvah min amuvcha. It is preferable, if you can, to use olive oil, like in the Beis Hamikdash. V'im ein shemen zayis motzu mitzvah b'shmonim zorim zoch v'noki. Of course, better, as we said before. It's ideal. The ideal is to get a nice pure oil, yeah, noki. But no argument in say lahadik menera shel shabo. There you are. You see, the Ramah is telling us, obviously, in as we know from Germany and etc., is that a lot of people use candles, ki'oret solul, very clear light, and it goes on that this continues the Shulchan Aruch v'afilu b'leil Shabbos mutar lahadik b'nei Chanukah. Also okay, why? Look at the next line, please. Also lehishtamesh b'nei Chanukah bein b'Shabbos bein b'chol. Va'afilu livdok mois. There you are. Even to check a wad of notes, or to check your money, or limnosog, counting, whatever. That would all be also. Even very interesting. It's interesting, even if you're utilizing something kedusha, could go in next line, lilmod la'ora. Maybe you're learning something, not just reading a book. You're learning something that would also be forbidden. but some people do allow it if it's for something which you really now look at the next line. Therefore, we have the minig lahadlik ner noisov, because yes, clearly you've got to light the lights, but you don't need the shamas to stay there the whole time, do you? Yes. Therefore, if you utilize the lights, you're really utilizing part of it is going to be that extra shamas or shamash. Yeah, put it further away than the rest of the candles. That is that. Now move down, scroll down a little bit, and then further. Oils and wicks. There you go. All written there for you. Okay, keep going. Anything further I want to mention? Oh, there's the point number 2. Hadloka oisa mitzvah. You can see the translation there. It's the kindling does the mitzvah. The fichach im kofso kodem she'ova zamana. If it actually, as we've seen here, it was extinguished, one extinguished it. If it was extinguished or whatever, I don't know about that one. In kofso kodem she'ova zamana. Ein zokuk lo. Person is not bound by it. I feel kofso berev Shabbos kodem kabbalah Shabbos. Wow. Even if it's before you don't really have to rekindle it at all. Anything else we want to see? Let's just scroll down a bit further. I will stop here otherwise. No, that's going. No, we don't need that. We don't need that. And that's probably enough for tonight, I think. Yes. So that's actually, see clearly where the development of that halacha. Anything else I wanted to mention before you come back? Tofresh in space. Let me just have a look here. Any important Mishnah Berurah you need to see? No, this is not the Tofresh in Gimel. I'm just before you come back. No, there wasn't anything I really want to tell you. Yeah, except for scroll back a bit. I mean, you might as well pick up this point that Ramah that we saw, which is Ramosha Isilis. If you double, there we are. Yeah, there you go. Where it says, third line down, double click, have a look at the commentary there. And let's go to Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah, and we'll close with this. Thank you. Go down to letter 4, Daled. Although he says people do, you got, look, Daled's not there. Oh, what happened to Daled? Oh, most interesting thing. They've omitted that. Huh. Don't know what's happened to Daled. Gone.
See where it says open, add to sheet. Can you press that? Yeah. Does that work?
Well done there. There's a man. Knows what he's doing. Thank you, sir. Daled. Not very long, Daled, but nevertheless, it should be there. Mikol Mokoim, although we said a lot of people do use candles, fine. Mitzvah b'shel shemen, tfei minor shel shavo. Nevertheless, oil is preferable. We saw that. Da'al yedei shemen nasa nes, because the miracle, of course, with olive oil, well, oil in particular, and therefore that is preferred. So you can see that even so, a lot of people using oil as that's the preferred route. But as we go back, thank you very much, Peter. Running out of time here. We've actually gone beyond time. So thank you very much indeed. Good to see everybody. Everybody well? And are we okay for next week? All being well? So